Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere strange. Not spooky exactly, just off. You've just arrived in a quiet little town tucked between hills no map ever names. The air smells faintly of warm bread and wet pavement. Street lamps hum, like lullabies. Everyone here smiles politely, says hello, invites you for tea. But no one remembers when they were born, not even you. You swear it was just yesterday you blew out candles. Or was that someone else's memory? A dream? A glitch? The more you try to trace the date, the more it slips like fog through your fingers. And here's the weird part. No one thinks it's weird. In this town, birthdays just aren't a thing. You're not sure if that's comforting or terrifying. Either way, you probably wouldn't survive here without a calendar and a very good therapist. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are, and where in the world are you watching from? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out of the tiny train station with the sinking feeling you've missed something, like you skipped a line in your own biography. The platform behind you is empty, no signs, no schedule, not even a squeaky clock to mark your arrival. You drag your suitcase over cobblestone streets and pass a sign that reads, in chipping gold paint, "Welcome to Somberlin." Established, whenever. Helpful. The houses look old but not abandoned, painted in tones of seaweed green and oatmeal brown. Their chimneys puff friendly clouds into the dusk, and flower boxes spill lazy vines down windowsills. A boy on a bicycle waves. A cat with one eye blinks at you from a rooftop. It feels like a set from a movie about nostalgia. Only no one seems to know what they're nostalgic for. You check into a modest inn where the receptionist doesn't ask for ID. She just smiles and says, "Name's probably not important, but we'll write it down anyway." Her pen scratches your details into a big leather-bound book with pages so yellowed they look like ancient toast. As you head to your room, she adds casually, "Oh, and happy. Well, whatever day it is for you." Inside, the room is cozy. Lace, curtains, faded quilt, a mirror with tarnished edges. You pull out your phone, but there's no signal, no internet, not even a clock on the wall. The only thing that ticks is a cuckoo clock in the hallway, its little bird permanently stuck halfway out, beak open mid-squawk. Lying in bed, your eyes trace the cracks in the ceiling. You try to remember your last birthday. A cake? A party? A card from someone? Nothing, just blank static. That's when it hits you. You don't know your age, not anymore. You sit up. Panic nibbles at the edges of your thoughts. You rummage through your bag for your ID, passport, license, anything. All gone. Just a folded piece of paper in your wallet. Welcome back. You've always belonged here. Cool, totally normal. Definitely not cult vibes. You pace the room, heart thudding. Open drawers, check the closet, under the bed. The only thing remotely useful is a dusty town brochure which reads, "In Somberlin, every day is a chance to start anew, especially when the old ones are hard to recall." There's no calendar, no reference to time, no birthdays, no anniversaries, just vague slogans and smiling illustrations of the bakery, the post office, the train station. You don't sleep much that night. Dreams flicker in snippets. Candles, that won't light. People singing a birthday song in reverse. A cake with the words "You weren't born" spelled in purple icing. When morning comes, the town is already awake. You open the curtains. Fog. Always fog. And distant laughter, like someone remembering a joke they forgot the punchline to. Downstairs, the receptionist offers coffee and says, "Big day today." You ask, "Why? Is it someone's birthday?" She frowns, then shrugs. Could be. Could be everyone's. Or no one's. You sip the coffee. It tastes like cinnamon and secrets. Later, as you walk outside, something nags at you. A quiet voice in the back of your mind. If you can't remember your birthday, how do you know you exist at all? You laugh it off. Sort of. But deep down, Something about this place is unraveling you, thread by thread, and it's only just begun. You wander through the cobbled streets of the town in the early morning, where the fog never quite leaves, only changes color depending on the time of day. Every shop is open, but none have posted hours, even the clock above the mechanics. Garage is frozen at 7:23 and no one seems to care. Eventually, you find your way to the town library, an old red brick building with tall windows and a slate roof. It looks like the kind of place you'd find books about global conspiracies, medieval plague remedies, or at least some information about the people who live here. You flip open the visitor log at the front desk. There's no list of borrowed books, just handwritten names in looping, uncertain penmanship, no birth dates, no addresses, no dates at all. You ask the librarian, a small elderly woman with her white hair tied in a neat bun and glasses like tiny bottle caps, if there's a section for personal archives or local census records. She doesn't blink. "Oh no," she says gently. "Here, we believe people shouldn't be weighed down by the past. It only invites trouble." You try to press further, but she simply gestures down a long hallway, smiling like someone offering you a puzzle she knows you won't solve. You follow it, feet quiet on old wooden floors. You're not looking for records of others. You're looking for yourself. If no one remembers their birthday, how does this town prove anyone ever existed? At the end of the corridor is a small room lined with scraps of paper, torn envelopes, faded maps. On one shelf sits a row of hardbound books, all untitled. You pull one out. The pages inside are blank, except for one sentence, written in delicate cursive on the first page. "Archives have been cleansed." You frown. Cleansed? Like a computer virus or something more ritualistic? You suddenly remember a real-life historical event, the 1973 fire at the National Personnel Records Center in the US, where over 16 million military records were destroyed in a single blaze. Overnight, millions of Americans lost the paperwork that proved their service. A bonfire of memory, sanctioned by fate. Maybe this town had a similar moment. Maybe something, or someone, decided that memories were too dangerous to keep. Historians still debate whether that 1973 fire was truly accidental or part of a broader effort to reset a chapter of national identity. Here in Somberlin, you start to suspect the latter. You return to the front desk and ask the librarian if birthdays were ever celebrated in the town. She sips her tea thoughtfully, then smiles. "Oh yes, once, but it became inconvenient." Inconvenient. How? You ask. Because the moment someone starts counting time, she says, they also start noticing they're getting older. That sentence hits you like a chill up the spine. Could this town be keeping people young by removing time itself? You leave the library, your thoughts racing. A man sweeping the sidewalk in front of a barber shop nods politely. You ask him, casually, "Hey, when's your birthday?" He squints toward the sky. "Think it was a Wednesday, but not this week." You nod awkwardly and walk away. People here accept vagueness the way others accept fog, or the fact that cats never listen. You look down. Carved into the stones of the walkway is a tiny inscription. Time is never lost. It just quietly withdraws. You think, if time has withdrawn from this town, what's left of the people? And more importantly, what's left of you? A part of you wants to leave. Pack up. Catch the next train out. But somewhere deep inside you already know, there may not be a next train. Or if there is, it won't take you where you remember. Still you press on, determined to find anyone who remembers being born. The scent of warm sugar lures you into a bakery tucked between two crooked buildings. Its window display is charming. Braided loaves, rose-shaped buns, a tower of eclairs that defy gravity. A painted sign above the door reads, "Pastries for every occasion, except one." Inside, the walls are lined with jars of honey and shelves of flour-dusted books with titles like The Mourner's Muffin and Weddings and Waffles. Behind the counter stands a round man in a flour-speckled apron, his cheeks as pink as the icing he's piping onto a tray of cupcakes. You glance at the case full of beautifully decorated confections. "Do you make birthday cakes?" you ask. His smile falters. "Oh," he says softly, as though you just asked about exorcisms. "No, not anymore." You press gently. "Why not?" He leans on the counter and lowers his voice. "You know how some towns have a haunted house? We have a haunted cake. One year we made a birthday cake. Just once. Vanilla, 4 layers, purple buttercream. It was for a girl named Elsie. What happened? She disappeared before we could give it to her. Some say she left town. Some say she never existed." He shrugs and returns to his piping. "But you can't stop thinking about that purple cake. You buy a croissant shaped like a question mark and sit by the window. While you chew, your thoughts wander to history, specifically the ancient Egyptians. Birthdays weren't always parties with balloons and clown trauma. In ancient Egypt, the only birthdays celebrated were those of the pharaohs. Commoners didn't bother. You were born? Great, back to work." It wasn't until the Greeks came along and added moon-shaped cakes with candles, meant to honor Artemis, that the idea of birthday candles even started. It's oddly comforting to think your yearly candle-blowing ritual might be tied to a goddess of the hunt. But here's the twist. Some historians believe Cleopatra's actual birthday was never recorded at all. Not officially. We have estimates, of course, but nothing definitive. Imagine that. One of the most iconic women in history, and she might have never blown out a single candle. Back in the bakery, a little girl runs in holding a bundle of wildflowers. "I made this for you," she chirps to the baker. "Oh, darling," he says warmly. "It's not my birthday." She frowns. "Then, why did I pick them?" He kneels down to her level. Maybe it's a gift for a day that's trying to remember what it used to be. She nods like that makes perfect sense and scampers out. You take another bite of your croissant and feel the air shift. There's something unsettling about a place that refuses to mark the passage of time, like it's holding its breath, afraid to age. You notice a small bulletin board near the door with old flyers. A wedding announcement from 12 years ago, a lost cat named Nebuchadnezzar, missing since next March, and a hand-painted sign, "Birthday bash canceled, until further." Notice someone wrote underneath in pencil, "Notice has been missing since 1991. You snort softly. That's your third chuckle since arriving in this town. Somberlin may be weird, but at least it has a sense of humor. You pay for your pastry and thank the baker. He hands you a small tart topped with lavender and says, "On the house." It's a non-birthday gift. As you walk back into the foggy street, tart in hand, you wonder if you're starting to forget your birthday on purpose. It feels easier somehow, safer. But a thought lingers in the back of your mind, soft and persistent. If birthdays are how we mark our beginning, what happens to someone who no longer marks anything at all? You bite into the tart. It tastes like memory and maybe a hint of regret. The fog thickens as you follow the scent of wet stone and something faintly metallic. At the end of a sloping lane, you come upon an old stone bridge arching gently over a dry creek bed. Ivy coils up its sides like it's trying to keep the structure from floating away into time. There's a tarnished plaque at its center that reads, "Dedicated to whoever built it. Year?" You laugh, quietly. Of course, even the infrastructure has amnesia here. As you cross, your footsteps echo strangely, like they're not quite syncing with your stride. The air feels denser in the middle of the span, the way it does before a thunderstorm. You stop at the highest point and peer down at the creek below. No water, just pebbles and bones of tree roots. Someone's left a folded paper boat on the rocks. You remember something. Not a real memory, more like the idea of one. A different bridge. Another lifetime. Maybe the London Bridge? There's a story, a strange one, like all good ones, about how the original London Bridge was sold, brick by brick, and shipped to America in 1968. They rebuilt it in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, where it still stands today. But here's the weird part. Locals claim that when the bridge arrived, strange things started happening. Shadows that didn't match their casters. tourists walking across it who forgot why they came, children dreaming in accents they never heard. Some say the soul of the bridge stayed behind in London. Others say it traveled with the stones, still confused about where it belongs. Historians mostly agree that the move was just a publicity stunt, but some debate whether the bridge itself was switched during transit, swapped for another relic, forgotten by everyone but the few who now walk across it in their dreams. You trail your fingers along the cold, damp stones beneath your palm. This bridge in Somberlin feels like that, dislocated, lonely, like it once belonged somewhere else, maybe even someone else. Near the edge, someone has etched a question into the mossy surface with the end of a key. Where does a bridge go when both sides forget it? It rattles you more than you care to admit. On the far side, there's a bench half swallowed by grass. You sit for a while, watching a crow pick at a shiny object. It looks like a party favor. One of those little paper horns you blow into, the kind that unfurls with a squeal. The crow caws and flies off with it, of course. Even the birds here steal celebrations. A man walks by with a fishing rod, despite the lack of water. "Nice day," he says cheerfully. You nod, then point at the bridge. "Do you know what this is called?" He shrugs. "The old one. Been here longer than anyone. They say it connects what we don't want to remember to what we never knew." You glance back at the stones. "Ever wonder who built it?" He chuckles. "Nope." You start asking questions like that. Next thing you know, you're trying to throw yourself off it just to see if you land somewhere that makes more sense. You smile tightly. That makes your fourth nervous laugh since arriving. He tips his hat and wanders off, casting his empty line into the empty creek. As you stand to leave, you feel the strange sensation that you've crossed more than just a gap in terrain. You've stepped deeper into something, a place where facts erode like stone underwater that isn't there anymore. You glance one last time at the plaque. Year? No answers, just more absence. You keep walking, the fog curling around your ankles like a pet you didn't ask for. And somewhere behind you, the bridge waits patiently, holding up the weight of what no one wants to remember. A cough rattles through your chest as you push open the glass door of the town's health clinic. Inside, everything smells like antiseptic and rain-damp wood. The reception area is empty, save for a goldfish swimming in slow, hypnotic circles. In a bowl labeled Dr. Peabody, you ring the tiny bell on the counter. Nothing. You wait, half expecting an old-timey nurse in a crisp white dress to emerge. But no one does, so you do what any reasonable person would. You wander deeper inside. The walls are covered in motivational posters, though all the phrases have something slightly off. You are more than the sum of your symptoms. A healthy mind forgets the timeline. We don't need dates to heal. In the back hallway, you find a room marked Records. You hesitate. The door is unlocked, so naturally you enter. Rows and rows of filing cabinets loom ahead, each labeled with categories like allergies, injuries, and curiously, uncertainties. You locate a drawer labeled birth certificates and tug it open. It's empty, not just missing papers. Dustless. Like it was cleaned yesterday, or never filled in the first place. Next to it, another drawer labeled Echoes. You pull that one, half expecting it to squeal. Instead, it opens silently to reveal index cards, each with a single word. Maybe. Dozens of them. Maybe. 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 You whisper to the room, "Who the hell runs this place?" And as if summoned, a man appears in the doorway, not a doctor. Not exactly. He's wearing a white coat, yes, but over jeans and a hoodie that says, "Time is a social construct." His name tag reads, Doc, probably. "You lost?" he asks, sipping from a mug that reads, "World's okayest physician." You blink. "I was looking for birth records." He nods solemnly. "A common symptom." "Of what?" "Remembering." He sets down the mug and walks past you, running a finger along the edge of the open drawer. This town doesn't keep track of beginnings, just continuations. You press further. "But isn't that dangerous? How do people know who they are?" He shrugs. "They don't. Most find that's a relief." You glance back at the cabinet. I don't. I want to know when I was born. He leans in close, his voice barely above. A whisper. Do you, though? Because if you find that out, everything else starts aging. You don't respond. He pats you on the shoulder like a dog who brought back the wrong stick and walks away, humming happy birthday off-key. You stay there for a long moment, staring at the drawer labeled birth certificates as if it might suddenly fill itself. Instead, a different memory fills you, one that feels borrowed. The story of the 1973 fire at the National Personnel Record Center in St. Louis. A real disaster, yet almost mythic in its consequences. Flames ate through millions of military files, vaporizing decades of identity. Some veterans went to their graves unable to prove their own service. Others became ghosts in paperwork, unable to claim pensions or medals. The official story says it was an accident, but historians still argue over the truth. Some say it was poor planning. Others whisper about quiet decisions to let memory go up in smoke. Here in Somberlin, you can't help but think they did it on purpose. Maybe not with fire, but something slower, something quieter. You wander back out to the front desk. The goldfish swims by, unimpressed. You write your name on a scrap of paper and place it next to the bowl, just to see what happens. Nothing does. On the way out, a faded sign taped to the door catches your eye. We apologize. Time of birth service is permanently unavailable. But don't worry, you're here now, and that's enough. You stand. On the sidewalk, the fog wrapping around your shoulders like an old shawl. It's not enough. You're starting to feel the hunger, not for cake or candles, but for proof, for something written down, for a timestamp on your own existence. But in this town, the only thing stamped is silence, and you're beginning to wonder if it's contagious. The center of town has a clock tower. Of course it does, because every quaint, possibly cursed village needs a clock tower ticking away in the background, except here it doesn't tick. It hums. You find yourself drawn to it, like a moth to a fluorescent light that probably shouldn't be buzzing quite so loudly. The tower rises above the square, built from dark bricks and stained by time or coffee, or maybe both. At its peak, a round clock face gazes blankly down at you. There are no numbers, just 12 little icons, weathered, barely legible. A tree, a crown, a teacup, a fish. Symbols that mean something, maybe, or used to. The hands of the clock point, somewhere between fish and teacup. You look around. No one else seems to notice. Kids play hopscotch on a sidewalk that loops back into itself. A man walks by with a dog on a leash, though you're pretty sure the leash is tied to the man, not the other way around. You ask an elderly woman on a bench, "Excuse me, do you know what time it is?" She smiles like you just told a lovely joke. "Oh, honey, we stopped asking that ages ago." The wind kicks up, and you swear the clock hum deepens, like it's sighing. You glance again at those 12 strange icons. The longer you stare, the more they shift. That fish looks more like a coin now. The teacup is a crescent moon. You blink. Everything's back to normal. Maybe it reminds you of Julius Caesar. Not in a toga way, but in a calendar way. Before he was famously stabbed, by basically everyone he'd ever met, Julius Caesar took it upon himself to fix Rome's messed up calendar. He added whole months to realign the system with the seasons. At one point, the year was extended by 90 days. Just tack them on. Imagine waking up and being told you now live in a 3-month-long February. And of course, he named a month after himself. July. It was a flex. But also an acknowledgement. Time is slippery. It bends when people in power need it to bend. Historians still debate whether Caesar's reforms were purely practical or whether he used the calendar to cement control, to remind everyone that even their birthdays now belong to him. You stand beneath the clock tower and think, maybe that's what happened here. Someone or something decided birthdays were too dangerous, too individual, too concrete. So, they built a clock that doesn't measure time, just moments, moods, maybe dreams. The plaque at the tower's base reads, installed to honor the great forgetting. May you never be late for something that no longer exists. You lean against the cold stone and feel it vibrate faintly, as though the tower is speaking in a language you've forgotten how to hear. A little boy approaches, holding a paper cup filled with pebbles. He offers it to you. "This is your minute," he says solemnly. You accept it without question. He runs off. You stare down at the pebbles, wondering if this is some kind of metaphor, or if this town has simply decided to replace time with gravel. You pocket the pebbles, just in case, and then you whisper, half to yourself, half to the tower. If no one measures the hours, how do you know when something's over? A soft chime rings out. Not from the tower, from your pocket. The pebbles? No, one of them has cracked open. Inside is a tiny metal gear, smooth, warm, humming. You look up. The clock tower's hands are moving toward a symbol you don't recognize, and suddenly you're not sure if it's measuring time forward or backward. You head down a narrow gravel path that curls behind the clock tower, where the fog thickens like a memory trying to protect itself. The buildings grow quieter here, smaller, as if trying not to be noticed. A wooden sign points to a part of town labeled simply, "The Meadows." You follow the path until you find her. She's sitting in a weathered rocking chair on a wraparound porch that sags under the weight of too many stories. A cat sleeps curled on her lap, and a bowl of lemon candies rests beside her elbow. Her name, she says, is May. No last name, just May. Like the month, you ask. She chuckles without mirth. Used to be. You take a seat in the creaking chair across from her. She rocks slowly, each motion like a breath from the house itself. "I heard you're the only one who remembers their birthday," you say. She nods once, eyes half closed. "I do. Or at least I think I do." You lean forward, hopeful. "What day?" She smiles with something that isn't quite joy. "It hasn't happened yet." "I'm sorry?" "My birthday," she says, "hasn't happened. Not here. Not in this version of things. But I remember it anyway. It's waiting. For me." You don't know what to say to that, so you accept a lemon candy and unwrap it slowly. The citrus hits your tongue like sunlight on old photographs. "Before I came here," she says, "I used to have a husband, a house full of clocks, a little black dog named Freckles. I remember blowing out candles, but not how many." "What changed?" "I started dreaming backward." You stare at her, uncertain whether she's speaking metaphorically or clinically. "Like déjà vu?" She shakes her head. "Worse. I'd wake up with memories I hadn't lived yet. One morning I knew the lyrics to a song I wouldn't hear for 10 more years. Another day I cried over a divorce that hadn't happened." "And your birthday?" you ask softly. "That was the only thing that stayed the same. I always knew the date. It was like an anchor. But when I got here..." She trails off. You wait. I looked at a calendar and it wasn't there. May 17th just didn't exist. You want to tell her that's impossible. That every calendar, no matter how dysfunctional, still has a May 17th. But something in her gaze stops you. A sadness that feels older than doubt. You remember learning about the Maya civilization, how they had multiple calendars layered over one another. Ritual, solar, lunar. They believed time wasn't linear but cyclical. Birthdays in that view weren't anniversaries. They were reoccurrences, loops, echoes. Some scholars argue the Maya didn't fear apocalypse, but transition. An ending was just the beginning. Again, slightly out of phase. Historians still debate what caused the collapse of Maya cities: war, drought, rebellion. But there's another theory, quietly discussed in fringe academic circles. Time collapsed inward. The calendar caught up to itself. You look at May, this woman with her cracked hands and timeless voice, and wonder if that's what happened here. Not a fire, not a storm, but a folding of time so elegant that birthdays simply slipped between the pages. "You ever think of leaving?" you ask. She shakes her head. "If I leave, I might forget that I was ever waiting." She stands slowly and hands you something, an old party hat made of newspaper, edges curled, For when your day comes, she says. You nod, even though you don't know what that means. As you walk away, you glance back once. May is gone. The chair still rocks. The lemon candy melts on your tongue, like time itself dissolving. And for the first time since you arrived, you wonder if you had a birthday that just hasn't happened yet. You find yourself at the town museum, a square building with pillars that try too hard, like they're auditioning to be important. A rusted banner above the door reads, Somberlin Historical Society, everything we could remember. And some things we made up. Inside, it's cooler than expected. Quiet too, like sound is forbidden. The walls are lined with dusty dioramas, the founding of the post office, by a man whose mustache was allegedly long enough to strangle a lie, the Great Pie Riot of '38, involving exactly 0 casualties but 14 ruined crusts, and a wax sculpture of a raccoon wearing a monocle. In the far corner is a large room titled The Wall of Faces. You step in, it hits you like a hush. Hundreds of photographs line the walls, sepia-toned, black and white, Polaroid, digital. Children, elders, families, loners. Some look straight into the camera. Others are turned slightly, as if caught mid-thought. None have names, none have dates, no captions. No explanations, just faces, watching, forgotten. You scan for something familiar, an old schoolmate, a celebrity, maybe even yourself. It's absurd, but in a town where birthdays don't exist, the rules are wobbly at best. Your eyes land on a photo near the center, a boy in a striped sweater with a missing front tooth. He's holding a balloon. You stare at it too long, trying to make the image blink. That's when you notice the frame is warm. You step back. A tiny plaque near the floor catches your eye. Submitted by no one, date unknown, possibly you. You swallow. There's a bench in the center of the room, so you sit, trying to understand what this is. A memorial, a warning, a scrapbook made by ghosts. It makes you think of the first photograph of a human being. You've heard the story before, maybe in school, maybe whispered on the internet. The first person ever caught in a photograph wasn't the subject. He was a man having his shoes shined on a Paris street in 1838, completely unaware he was being immortalized by a camera the size of a refrigerator. Historians still debate his identity. Was he a laborer? A gentleman? Just passing through? He never gave his name. He never posed. Yet, he became the face of a new era, proof that someone existed at a precise moment in time. In this room, no one has that luxury. A woman enters quietly and sits beside you. She has a name tag that reads, Volunteer. Probably. She hands you a Polaroid camera. Would you like to contribute? You hesitate. To what? She gestures to the wall. To the forgetting. Or the remembering. We haven't decided which it is. You take the camera. It's heavier than you expect. Smile? She offers. You raise the viewfinder, to your eye pointed outward instead of inward. The shutter clicks. You just photographed a wall of people no one can name. Or maybe people who once had names but chose to let them go. You hand the photo back to the woman. She pins it next to the boy with the balloon. No label, no date, no birthday. You walk out into the fog again, heart beating in someone else's rhythm. And you can't shake the question, if no one writes your name down, do you ever really get to leave a mark? The museum door creaks shut behind you, and inside, 1,000 eyes keep watching. The sound of laughter draws you toward the edge of town, where a squat brick building sits behind a rusting fence and a hand-painted sign reads, Somberlin Schoolhouse, where growing up is optional. You peek through the chain-link gate and see children playing a game that looks suspiciously like tag but with rules known only to them. The winner, apparently, is whoever can stand still the longest while humming. You let yourself in. The school smells like chalk and wildflowers. A teacher, her badge says Miss Again, waves at you as if you've been visiting every day for years. Feel free to look around, she says brightly. We're doing free-form learning today. Is there another kind? You ask, instantly regretting the sass. Not here, she replies, not missing a beat. Here, we focus on the present. It's the only time that listens. You wander down a hallway plastered with colorful drawings, rainbows, trees, a surprising number of eyeballs. You stop at a bulletin board titled "Today's Birthdays." It's empty. Next to it, a poster declares, "No balloons, no cake, no age-based learning. We grow when we're ready." You ask a nearby kid, maybe 8 years old, if anyone celebrates birthdays around here. "Nah," she says, twisting her shoelace. "One time I asked, and someone said that having a birthday means you've already started disappearing." You blink. "That doesn't make sense." She shrugs. Neither does spelling. She's not wrong. You step into a classroom where a chalkboard reads, "Lesson of the day, you are here. Optional. Why, that's enough." The teacher, Miss Again, smiles warmly. "We teach presence here, not history, not future." The minute you start measuring kids by age, you start losing the magic. You glance at the shelves. No textbooks, just blank journals, paintbrushes, and a stack of VHS tapes labeled with titles, like How to Breathe Without Counting and Let the Cloud Do the Math. It's unnerving and oddly beautiful, and yet, you think about how birthdays used to be a marker of pride, a sign that you'd made it another year, survived something. Even in ancient times, birthdays had significance, but not always in the celebratory way. In early Christianity, birthdays were considered pagan, an indulgent focus on the self. For centuries, the church banned birthday celebrations. Only saints' death days were honored. It wasn't until much later, thanks to the Germans and their Kinderfests, that the birthday party as we know it became popular again. Even then, it was a way to shield kids from evil spirits. Blow out candles, make a wish, stay alive. And here in Somberlin, the kids don't even blow bubbles. You notice one student quietly drawing in the corner, a series of small pictures, a birthday cake with no candles, a calendar with no numbers, and a figure standing under falling confetti that never reaches the ground. "What's this?" you ask. She looks up. "A memory I haven't made yet." You pause. "That's a beautiful way to put it." She grins. "Thanks. I got it from a book we haven't written." You step out of the classroom, overwhelmed in the most peaceful way possible. You pass a final poster near the exit. "Here, we don't grow up. We grow inward." Outside, the wind feels a little cooler, like time just skipped a beat. You look back one last time. Through the window, the children are painting stars on the floor, not the ceiling, because even dreams in Somberlin have their own gravity. By dusk, the town begins to stir in a new way. Lanterns appear in windows. The bakery replaces its croissants with masks and finger foods. A fiddler tunes her strings beside a shop called "Yesterday's Clothes, Tomorrow's Shoes." You follow, the sound of a distant drum until you reach the town square, now wrapped in colored paper, slow-moving lights, and the scent of burnt cinnamon. It's not a birthday party. It's something older. Something stranger. A hand-lettered banner hangs lazily between two lampposts. "Welcome to the Festival of No Ages." People drift through the square, wearing masks of animals, clocks, mirrors, and, in one case, a pancake. No one's talking about how old they are. No one's counting anything. It feels free, a little eerie, like Mardi Gras if it were hosted by memory loss itself. A man hands you a mask made of silver tinsel and black lace. "Put this on," he says. Tonight, nobody knows who they were. You slip it over your face. The world softens. Dancers move like smoke. Children chase shadows. A woman sings into a lantern and it glows a shade brighter. Near the fountain, a man juggles clocks that don't tick. They spin in slow, irregular arcs, one of them still stuck at fish o'clock from the tower earlier. You find yourself smiling. It's hard not to. There's something magnetic about not being known. The town mayor, or someone playing the part, climbs onto a box and raises a goblet. "Fellow whatevers," he calls. "We gather tonight to celebrate the beautiful absence of time." Cheers erupt, or yawns. "It's hard to tell," he continues. "In the old world, they tied numbers to our names. They said you could measure worth in candles and gray hairs, but here we are not the sum of our digits. We are the rhythm between. The crowd claps. Someone throws flower petals. A small dog wearing a monocle barks once in approval. You watch as a group begins a slow parade around the square, each holding objects instead of banners. A comb, a rock, a baby shoe, a spoon. Not symbols of time, symbols of moments, and it hits you. This isn't a rejection of aging. It's a protest against measurement. You think of ancient Rome again, of Saturnalia, a winter festival where norms flipped upside down. Slaves became masters. Kings wore fool's hats and time itself was suspended. Historians believe it was more than just fun. It was necessary. A way to let the world breathe outside the structure of calendars and rule. Some scholars say Saturnalia made time bendable. Others still debate if it gave people too much freedom. Freedom they couldn't return from. You wander the edges of the square. A girl in a mask shaped like a bird taps your arm. Want to trade birthdays? You blink. I don't know mine. She shrugs. That's okay. Neither do I. Makes trading easier. You smile. Sure, I'll take yours then. Deal, she says, and vanishes into the crowd. It's nonsense. Of course it is. But you feel lighter somehow, like you're no longer carrying a date that never made sense in the first place. The festival continues into the night, quietly chaotic, joyfully confused. Someone juggles spoons. Another person performs interpretive dance about Tuesday. The sky doesn't change color, but you swear you can feel midnight pass through you. And for the first time, maybe ever, you understand what it means to celebrate. Without counting, you pull off your mask and look around. No one's watching. Or maybe everyone is. It doesn't matter, because here, in this town, you are free from the weight of being 1 year older. You are simply here. By the time the festival fades into murmurs and flickering lanterns, you find yourself walking toward a radio tower at the edge of town. It's barely lit, just a soft red beacon blinking at the top like a sleepy eye refusing to close. The building, beneath it, is squat and covered in ivy, with a crooked sign bolted above the door. Echo 101, the voice of what might have happened. A bell tinkles as you step inside. The station is a time capsule if the past had a sense of humor and no filing system. Vinyl records teeter in stacks like tipsy sentinels. Typewriters sit next to walkie-talkies. There's a lava lamp, a rotary, phone. A stuffed flamingo with a name tag, chief engineer. A woman sits behind a mixing board, sipping coffee out of a mug that reads, I broadcast, therefore I am. She nods as you enter, not missing a beat between flipping switches and adjusting. Dials, you're early, she says. For what? Your guest segment, she replies, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. Topic tonight is things we forgot on purpose. You take a seat in the cracked leather chair across from her, still unsure if this is real, a dream, or some performance art being streamed to absolutely no one. She slides over a mic. It's on, she says. Go ahead. You stare at it. The little red light glares at you like it's expecting something deep. Hi, you say, and your voice echoes softly in the booth. I think I forgot my birthday. There's silence. Then the woman nods. Join the club. Every night we tell stories here. Stories that echo back differently depending on who's listening. She cues up a cassette tape labeled Maybe Monday. Soft music begins to play, something between jazz and elevator music if the elevator went sideways through time. And then, the tape speaks. Not a song, not a commercial, but a voice. Your voice, talking about a memory you don't remember recording. You freeze. It describes a park with duck-shaped boats, a candle that wouldn't stay lit, a name whispered in a wind that didn't belong to that day. You ask the woman, where did you get this? She shrugs. Echoes come to us. Always have. People speak things they haven't said yet, or might say, or almost said once. You sit in stunned silence, listening to yourself talk about a lost birthday that may never have happened, but somehow you grieve it anyway. The woman turns the dial, fading the tape to static. You know about the ghost army? She asks suddenly. You blink. The what? World War II. Real thing. A division of artists and radio techs who faked entire battalions using inflatable tanks and fake radio chatter. They made armies that didn't exist, confused the enemy, bought time, saved lives. She leans in. Sometimes, I think this town is doing the same thing, making noise to distract us from the silence, faking memory to protect us from what we lost. Historians still argue about whether the Ghost Army was truly effective. Some say it saved thousands. Others say the deception went too deep. Some operatives reportedly forgot what was real themselves. You sit back in the chair, the mic now quiet. The woman hands you a cassette. Blank label, blank tape. For your story, she says. In case you want to forget something on purpose later, you pocket it not knowing why. Outside, the radio tower pulses red against the fog. The voice on the tape lingers in your ears. I used to know the day I was born, then I traded it for a quieter kind of knowing. You look up at the blinking light, wonder who else is listening, or who isn't anymore. You leave Echo 101 without another word. But something follows you. A memory you haven't made. A sentence you'll never say aloud, but can already hear. There are parts of me that only exist in static. And the tower hums. And the fog thickens. And the cassette in. Your pocket gets just a little warmer. You wander without a destination. The kind of walk you take when your body wants to keep going but your mind has run out of breadcrumbs. The streets are mostly empty now. Even the fog seems tired, curling up in alleyways like it's done haunting. For the day, your feet lead you to the edge of a cemetery you didn't know existed. There's no gate, just a rusted archway that reads, "Always remembered, even if no one knows why." Gravestones lean at odd angles, like they've been swapping secrets too long to stay upright. Some are carved from stone, others from wood. A few from what looks suspiciously like repurposed piano keys. No flowers, no candles, just moss and names, or in many cases, no names at all. You drift between the rows, eyes scanning dates that aren't there. No births, no deaths, just statements. She was often late, but always sincere. He made good tea. Somehow, we still miss her laugh. You pause at one stone that's entirely blank. Smooth and pale, it glows slightly in the moonlight. You step closer, brushing dirt from its base, and there it is. Your name. No dates. Just your name. Perfectly etched, as if someone knew you'd eventually arrive. You stumble back, breath caught somewhere between a gasp and a curse. Your heart races. You glance around, hoping to find a prankster with a chisel and a terrible sense of humor. But no one's there. You kneel and touch the stone, it's warm, and then barely a whisper behind you. Didn't expect you so soon. You spin around. An old man stands nearby, leaning on a shovel. He's wearing coveralls and a name tag. That says caretaker. He nods toward the grave. Don't worry. Doesn't mean what you think it means. You swallow. Then, what does it mean? He taps the shovel against his boot. It means you've been forgotten properly. The town's way of saying, you're one of us now. That doesn't make any sense, you mutter. It's not supposed to, he says with a grin. Sense is for places with calendars. You ask if he buried the person in that grave. He looks at you carefully. I don't bury people here. I bury their records, their dates, their numbers. You glance around the cemetery. So these aren't graves? Oh, they're graves, but not the kind you think. He points to a headstone that reads, Born a Tuesday, died an expectation. You laugh, just once, bitter and bright. There was a time, the caretaker says, when people were defined by when they were born and when they stopped breathing. That was all, a dash between two dates. But those dates, they're heavy. They stick to you like wet wool. He leans on the shovel again. We give people a chance to let go of that here. Be remembered for the right reasons. You want to. Be skeptical, but your name is still there, gleaming softly. He sees your hesitation. You don't have to accept it, of course. Plenty don't. Some even leave. And if I do accept it? He smiles. Then you're free. No more counting candles or morning clocks. You get to just be. You ask him what happened to the people who did leave. He shrugs. Historians are still debating that. The fog begins to thicken again, swirling low across the graves. You step back from the stone and realize you don't remember your exact age anymore, not your astrological sign, not even what month it is, and instead of panic, you feel relief. You whisper to the caretaker, "Why me?" He tilts his head. "Because you ask the question no one else does anymore." "What question?" "When?" You nod, slowly. Then, turn to leave. The grave stays behind. But your name feels lighter now, like it's made of mist and memory. And as you step out of the cemetery, you no longer feel like you're walking towards something. You feel like you're finally walking away from it. It starts to rain, just barely. The kind of misty drizzle that doesn't soak you but coats everything with a fine sheen of silver. You don't mind. Somehow this place even makes rain feel nostalgic. You find shelter in a small wooden cabin near the edge of town. There's no lock on the door, no number above the frame. Just a welcome mat that reads, "If you're here, you belong." Inside, the air smells of cedar, candle wax, and something faintly mechanical, like an old radio left running too long. The furniture is simple: a rocking chair, a writing desk, a bed with a handmade quilt. You run your fingers along a shelf filled with odds and ends, a snow globe without snow, a compass that points to maybe, and a jar of buttons labeled "Other People's Plans." There's a closet. You open it. Inside are coats, shoes, a dusty suitcase, but nothing has a tag, a name, or a date. Not even sizes. The strangest part? Everything looks familiar. Not in the "I've seen this before" way. More like, I might have worn that on a day I don't remember, for a reason I can't explain. You sit at the desk. Its drawer glides open with a whisper and reveals a small leather-bound notebook. Blank pages, no title, no prompts, just waiting. You flip through it, and suddenly, out of nowhere, a memory brushes the back of your mind. You, sitting at a birthday table. You, blowing out candles. You, wishing for what? But the image slips away before it can root itself. It reminds you of a phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. Groups of people sharing the same false memory, like a glitch in collective consciousness. Some swear the Monopoly man wore a monocle. He didn't. Others recall a movie called Shazam, starring Sinbad. It never existed. One theory says these shared memories come from alternate timelines bleeding into ours. Another says they're proof that memory is elastic, stretchy, imperfect, rewritten by emotion. Historians can't agree. Some call it a quirk of cognition. Others call it a side effect of a world too saturated with stories. You stare down at the empty notebook. A phrase forms in your mind like a fogged mirror clearing. Maybe you didn't forget. Maybe you were overwritten. You leave the journal open and walk the room again. No clocks, no calendars. Only soft evidence that someone once lived here, and maybe still does. You open a drawer and find a postcard addressed to you. No stamp, no date. The message is short, handwritten in calm, confident cursive. Don't worry. You've been here the whole time. You stare at it for a long moment, then place it on the desk beside the notebook. The bed creaks as you sit. You peel back the quilt and slip beneath it. Outside, the rain increases. Not stormy, just steady. The sound of the world erasing its own chalkboard. The lamp on the bedside table flickers, casting shadows that don't quite match your movements. You whisper aloud, "If I was never born, why do I remember missing it?" There's no answer, just the sound of water, wind, and the low hum of a town that doesn't keep time. And before sleep takes you, you wonder, what if we're all just collections of edited memories, carefully curated to make the gaps feel beautiful? You close your eyes, and the postcard on the desk glows just faintly, as if someone else might read it next. You wake to silence. Not the kind of silence that suggests peace. This one feels curated. Like someone combed through the morning and removed all the unnecessary sounds. No birds, no cars, not even the creak of the floorboards as you rise. Outside, the sky is a soft gray, the fog a little thinner now. The town feels paused, as if it's waiting for a cue you haven't given. Today is your birthday. You know it somehow. Not because you remember, because your bones do. Because your breath has a slightly different rhythm. Because when you blink, the air blinks with you. You decide to test it. You head back to the square. No signs, no balloons, no cake. But you try. Anyway, you place a folding chair at the center of the plaza, set down a plate with a single cupcake you took from the bakery, lavender frosting, no candle. You sit. You wait. Minutes pass. Hours? A woman walks by with a violin case. She smiles at you but doesn't stop. A couple strolls by holding hands, arguing softly about how long a minute is supposed to feel. You check your phone. Still no signal. Still, no time. Eventually, a child approaches. The same one from the schoolhouse. She looks at the cupcake. Are you having a party? You nod. Sort of. For who? For me, you say. It's my birthday. She tilts her head. You sure? No, you admit, but I need it to be. She nods like that's the only good answer. She pulls a crayon from her pocket and draws a candle on a napkin, places it beside the cupcake. There, she says. Now it's official. She runs off before you can say thank you. You sit alone. And it's beautiful in a strange way. A quiet rebellion. You think about the first digital birthday ever celebrated online, back in the mid-1990s. A user on an early forum got dozens of strangers to wish them well, even though no one knew who they were. It was the beginning of something wild, the merging of identity and data, celebration and performance. It was also, arguably, the first birthday party where the guest of honor didn't physically exist to most of the attendees. Historians, still, debate whether digital rituals deepen or dilute our sense of self. Some call it community, others call it simulation. And here you are, throwing a party for a self that may or may not have happened. A man walks by and drops a spoon in your lap. For me, luck, he says. You look down at it. It's warm, engraved with the word, today. You laugh softly. 5th time, maybe 6th since you got here. You've lost count, which feels appropriate. Later, when no one comes, you eat the cupcake anyway. It tastes like lavender, lemon, and memory. It tastes like being seen, even when you're not being watched. You leave the napkin on the chair, the one with the candle drawn in crayon, a reminder that this moment happened, even if no one else remembers, even if you don't, tomorrow. As you walk away, you don't feel disappointed. You feel rooted in something, in yourself, maybe. Because celebrating your birthday in a town that doesn't believe in birthdays, that's punk rock, that's presence. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what birthdays were meant to be all along. A small, quiet reminder that you are still here. It's your last morning in Somberlin. You don't remember deciding that, it's just true. You step outside and the fog greets you like an old friend who's finally stopped asking why you never text back. The town is the same, but you're not exactly. You walk the streets slowly, your feet retracing the soft grooves of a place that's rubbed away your edges. The bakery still hums with warmth. The schoolhouse echoes with distant laughter. Echo 101 blinks faintly at the edge of town, as if it's waiting for another cassette that hasn't been spoken yet. You carry a postcard in your coat pocket, blank on one side, your name on the other. The train station is where you found it all began, if anything began here. Now you return, suitcase in hand, though you're not sure what's in it. Maybe clothes. Maybe things you thought you needed but never once used. Maybe nothing at all. The platform is empty just as before, no clock, no schedule. But the bench is occupied by a stranger in a gray coat reading a book without pages. They look up and ask, "Are you leaving?" You nod. "I think so." They smile gently. "Then you'll want this." They hand you an envelope. Heavy, sealed with red wax. You hesitate. What is it? A birth certificate, they say. Sort of. You laugh once, then twice. Isn't that against the rules here? They shrug. Only if you open it. You place it in your bag without breaking the seal. The train arrives, silent as shadow. No conductor, no announcements, just open doors and a scent of something, warm and metallic. As you step on board, you feel something strange. Not fear, not doubt. Something like gravity shifting, like memory realigning itself. You glance out the window as the town begins to blur into fog. A final thought blooms in your mind, slow and inevitable. You were never born in Somberlin, but it's the only place that remembered how to forget you properly, and that might be enough. You sit by the window. The train hums like a lullaby you've always known. You pull out the postcard again and turn it over. This time, there's writing. Happy not birthday. Wherever you're going, take a little silence with you. You lean back, eyes heavy, as the world outside shifts from silver to shadow. And somewhere, far behind or far ahead, you think you hear the rooster crow. At 4:17, right on time. Now slow your breath. Let your eyes close gently. Let the train carry you without tracks to wherever you were always meant to rest. The town fades, the name fades, but not the feeling. You're still here, even when no one remembers the day you began, even when you forget it yourself. You are still here.